I can see how a significant event like that can kind of change how you even see the world.
Average age of a law enforcement officer in this country is 59 years old. That's almost 2 decades less than the general population.
What is it about this that has kind of caught the eye of people on social media and is actually been huge? Like a lot of people, it's changing people's lives.
We see negative things day in and day out, and it starts to become a habit for us.
I've seen so many people. It just kind of like took the internet by storm. Like even more interesting to me is when I started seeing the special operations community kind of taking it. Is it just the fact that you're forcing to do something you hate?
You will always be a veteran. You'll always be a cop, a firefighter, EMS. But we don't utilize it to our advantage. You know, like we need to learn how to use that community to build each other up.
I don't really give a fuck about the tribe anymore. My tribe times are done. Now my tribe is my family. We don't really need community. We really need to learn how to heal.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc Podcast.
I took the blows and did it my way.
It's time. The VinnyRoc Podcast.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the VinnyRoc Podcast. I got a friend here with me, Adam Boyd, who we linked up with. I don't even know how we originally connected, but I remember we ended up hitting it off fast enough to get him invited to our first men's retreat. He was our Wim Hof certified instructor, and since then we're continuing to work together and collaborate. I thought it'd be really cool to get you on here to just talk about that, talk about what you're doing in life currently, talk about wellness, just everything really in the space of mental health and wellness. And so I'm happy to have you on with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think the way we got linked up was I had a friend of mine who saw your post on social media and just kind of tagged me in it. He was like, hey, you need to reach out to this guy. I think you guys would, kind of hit it off and work well together. So I sent you a DM, and here we are.
Boom. Too easy, man. Well, this wellness space has been something that I've kind of been on board with for a while now. And, it kind of all culminated during that Light the Fuse to kind of bring everyone together, because I guess my idea was like, I realized in my own path to trying to figure out myself was that I had to try a lot of different therapies, a lot of different ones to try and find what works for me or what I was actually getting any kind of success from. And so I kind of realized that not all forms of therapy work for everyone, almost as if we're all very different in how we receive information and how we handle things. And so like when I came up with the Light the Fuse kind of idea, it was more so like bring in a lot of thought leaders in their space, and you're the thought leader in, the breathing / Wim Hof, man. And the reason why that was even interesting to me is that I've seen so many people. It just kind of like took the internet by storm. Like everybody's posting their cold, their cold plunges and all this. And where it became even more interesting to me is when I started seeing the special operations community kind of taking it with them. And then I was like, okay, interesting, because a lot of these special operations dudes that I look up to, they don't just jump into things blindly. They really do their research. And so I was like, okay, well, now I'm a little bit even more interested. And so I went further into realizing that I'd love to introduce this to our men. And so my question to you is like, what got you started on the path of learning the Wim Hof method and even going down that path?
Well, I was invited to a workshop by a friend of mine. It was actually a retired special operator that was teaching the class. And when I went through, like, I just left the class day, it wasn't like a drug high, but it was like this. I was like, I just felt good and better than I have in a long, long time. And so I started becoming a practitioner of it. And I went about 5 or 6 months. I was doing the breathing and the mindset and the cold exposure. And after about 6 months, I was like, I need to teach this to people. I need to teach this to my officers. I need to teach this to other first responders, veterans, or really anybody who sees, terrible things on a daily basis. it's an uphill battle for whether it's our military or our first responders. Our brain likes patterns of behavior, right? So we see negative things day in and day out, and it starts to become a habit for us. And I realized I needed a more proactive method other than just I was already working out. I'm already trying to eat well, get good sleep. But the reality was it wasn't enough. And I found a practice that really works for me and that I wanted to, bring out to the world. And just like you, I went through a lot of things to figure out how I can make myself feel better, how I can think better, how I can just be healthier. And that was the way that really works for me.
Yeah, man. And so what is your history before that in law enforcement?
So I started as a patrol officer for 5 years. I moved into the detective bureau where I specialized in domestic violence. I even niched down that further. I took most of our strangulation cases. I spent 3 years on our SWAT team, and a very busy agency, a very violent community. And so I just see a lot of negative things day in and day out. And it, kind of brought me to this method.
And what was the reason you decided to resign and 100% pursue this path?
It was a lot of reasons. The biggest reason is I realized that I didn't need to help, or I could help in more ways than just one. Everybody that gets into the first responder space or veteran community, there's service in them. They want to serve the country, they want to serve the communities. And, that was always in me. But I realized that I really wanted to help my fellow brothers and sisters lead a longer and happier lives. The average age of a law enforcement officer in this country is 59 years old. That's almost 2 decades less than the general population. And it's the way that we live. It's the way that we think. It's the way that we take care of ourselves. And I figured if I can lead the department and touch the 700,000 law enforcement officers in this country, the countless firefighters, EMS veterans, and I can make a huge impact in the world and help those that help others. Was
there anything in your life from your time in law enforcement that kind of stuck with you and almost forced you down the path of wellness before it kind of took over your life?
Honestly, the thing that really put me down the path of wellness stems way before my law enforcement career. I didn't figure it out until I would say almost a year ago. Actually, I was talking with you and a couple of the other guys about our purpose one day. And I realized that I'm so into my health and wellness because my father passed away when I was 9 years old. And I never want my daughter to feel the same pain that I felt when I was a kid. And I want to make sure that I can pass on wellness to others so their children and their families don't have to feel the same sadness.
Man, I think I remember us talking about that, but yeah, I can see I'm actually writing something right now about my past that kind of led me into what I do now kind of thing, but I can see how a significant event like that could kind of change how you even see the world and how you pursue things. You're an avid long distance runner, correct? And is that just part of your therapeutic, I guess, response, or is that something you just personally like to challenge yourself?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think part of the therapy for me is pushing myself and figuring out what I'm truly capable of. I grew up in a Midwest household where getting a college degree and getting a job was the pinnacle of success. Neither of my parents had degrees, both worked blue collar jobs. And I have to say, as a police officer, I was the wealthiest person in my family, which is a wild thing to say. But there's always been something different inside me. And I had an uncle of mine who was an endurance athlete, and he kind of was always been a mentor of mine. He's a military veteran, Navy diver. And I always kind of looked up to him, and that was just something that I picked up, I think just because of proximity. And I took up endurance running, and I loved the 50, 100-mile runs. I was talking with a buddy of mine about doing a 200 next year, which is still even hard for me to fathom running 200 miles. But I want to see what my capabilities are. One of the coolest things about endurance sports, whether you do, endurance do as a 10K or a marathon or a 200 miler, you get to see what you're made of. There's always a point in the sport where you want to quit. Almost anybody can get through a 45 minute to an hour workout, and it may suck for a while. But when you're out on the trail for, 18 hours, 19, 20, 48 hours, however long your race is, there's going to be a time where like you want to call it a day. Everything hurts. You're mentally broken down. And it's a really cool process to see what kind of decision you're going to make.
What's going on, y'all? Thank you for joining our show. Thank you for supporting it throughout the years. Thank you for telling your friends about it. Real quick, let me get to our sponsors. Core Medical Group, you already know. Testosterone replacement therapy. If you guys are above the age of 25 and not feeling yourself, if your wife isn't feeling the same either, yeah, it's for both. You guys can go get your blood work done at Core Medical Group. There's a lot of questions about having babies. There's a protocol for that. You can still have kids while being on TRT. I got a ton of fucking kids. But you guys go check them out. I love them. I trust them. I think you guys will love them as well. Straight Razors on IG. Do you know what that is? Grimblades.com. American made right there in Idaho. You guys should go check them out. It's a straight razor company. They make several different kinds of razors, not just straight razors, but they're known for the straight razors. I love them. The owner's an incredible person, a great American patriot, and so obviously I support them. You guys go check out Straight Razors on IG or Grimblades.com. Scallywag Tactical, some custom knives. Several of you have bought the dagger. I love it. I think a lot of you will love it. Get it for your wives. She could take it while she's going walking with the dogs or whatever. Scallywag Tactical is an incredible company. Again, it's just another company that I support heavily. They've been good to me. I'm good to them. So you guys go check them out. Modern Gun School. You guys have your veteran benefits still. If you're a veteran, you still have them. Go use it. Modern Gun School is for you. Learn how to be an armorer at the comfort of your own home. Learn how to make, more so fix, clean, and just be an expert and armor in your own home. You can't beat that. Go check them out. Modern Gun School. Just Meats. I'm trying this carnivore thing for a little while. I've been losing a little bit of weight and it feels great. Just Meats makes it easy. You guys can get Just Meats order. I got the links in my bio. It has meat that's already pre-cooked. All you have to do is heat it up. I get a lot of them sent to me, so I go ahead and throw them in the freezer. I defrost them. Boom. There's dinner. There's lunch. You guys will love Just Meats. Go check them out. Like I said, my link is in my bio, and all the links that we have, you guys can find them. All of our sponsors. United Patriot Coins. That's a little bit of a change for us, but we committed to this company and we love them. They've been taking care of us, and so we're going to start taking care of them. They're a very patriotic company. I love coins. I love silver. I love precious metals. So we just signed a partnership deal with them, and as well as United Patriot Supply is more than just a firearms dealer. They embody the spirit of tradition, showcasing expertise and igniting the passion amongst outdoor enthusiasts across the USA. I highly recommend this company. You guys go check them out at UnitedPatriotSupply.com. Those are our sponsors. I really appreciate you guys supporting this show, supporting everything I do. Don't forget Borderline book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes. Got some cool stuff coming up with Henry Rifles. I think you guys will love. Light Diffuser Retreat is coming around the corner. If you guys are looking for a men's wellness group, go check them out. And Tomorrow Battalion, if you're looking for a place to donate, a nonprofit that you can trust, Tomorrow Battalion is where it's at. We support veterans and first responders and their families. So you guys have any questions, you guys hit me up. Thank you for everything. Yeah, I think, I've been in several military selections and whatnot that I've been pushed myself to, like, moments I'm like, holy fuck, I think I'm going to quit, and there's one I can remember in Fort Sill. I was carrying a ton of weight, man. My rucksack was packed. I thought we were only going to walk 5 miles, and I was like, all right, I could knock this out for 5 miles. Then it goes to 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles, 9 miles, right? Get to about 15 miles, and we finally stop, and I was like, holy crap, I was ready to quit at 2. You know what I mean? And so, it's amazing how far our bodies can go when, mentally we can tell ourselves we can't make it, but our bodies will just go so much further than we even realize. You know what I mean?
It's an amazing feeling, and the community, just like the special operations community, is very small because there's only, I think, a few of us psychos out there that want to do this type of stuff. But I remember sitting my first 100-miler. I remember sitting in a chair at an aid station, and I had 20 miles to go, and I'm like, man, that's almost another marathon. Like, I'm ready. My ears hurt. Like, it just, everything was pain. And my wife was my crew member at the time, and I'm kind of feeling sorry for myself, which is, you kind of get to that point, and she just kind of looks at me and she says, you want to do something hard. This is what hard feels like. And I was like, damn, all right. And okay.
Damn.
And I got out of the chair, and we just kind of, I shuffled for a couple miles, and oddly enough, my body and my mind reset, and the next 10 miles were fairly solid. And then I just had to kind of make it through the last 8 to hit my first 100. And that's kind of how the last 20 miles went.
It's crazy. I did a half Ironman, and I remember after the bike, my legs were just like dead. I mean, shit, after the swim, I was like, I don't know if I can even do this shit, right? And then you get to the bike, and you're like, holy crap, here we go. When I got to the run, I was like, I have no idea if I could even do this. You know, my legs didn't work. You're riding a bike for so long that your ass and your legs are kind of only remember the bike. So it took me about a mile. It took me about a mile or so to get my legs under me for the run. And then I found, I was like, okay. And then I made a couple of early stops, you know, to get some snacks in me because I knew like my supplements were wrong. I was already cramping. I was struggling, but eventually got through it. And I was like, damn. And my dream was to do a full Ironman, you know, and I'm in the Clydesdale division at the time. So I'm like 205 at the time. And so it's like, it's a big boy in the triathlon world. You know what I mean? And, so it was an interesting time that I was trying to do the whole Ironman thing, and I decided after that half Ironman, I was like, maybe the dream of doing Ironman is not for me because I didn't find the fun in it as much as I thought I was. I just felt like, man, this is a kick in the nuts, and I paid a lot of money for this, so I'm gonna finish, you know. But I didn't find this like, hell yeah, that was great. I was actually like, no, man, I didn't like that at all. And it did the same with like a Tough Mudder. Everyone's like, Tough Mudders. I was like, okay, cool. I did a Tough Mudder. I was like, yeah, that just sucked. And I paid a lot of money for that. I don't want to do that anymore. Like it's easier for me to go to justify a military training or a law enforcement training that kicks me in the nuts than just take my own money and fucking pay for them to kick me in the nuts. I'm like, no, I'm good. It's just not for me.
I don't know. It's just, endurance runners are a different breed. It's in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. You guys are built different. It's like you enjoy that beatdown. And that's something that like, I guess I try and shy away from, you know what I mean? I don't want that in my life anymore. I'm trying to be, I'm a more gentler person that wants a gentler lifestyle.
Maybe it's pent up, I don't know. Maybe it's some pent up failures from my past or something. Like I still got to prove myself, at least to my own person. So,
yeah, I mean, look, I do a lot of psychology stuff, and there's definitely something in there about that. You know what I mean? Let's talk Wim Hof. You know, it took the internet by storm. I'm sure enough people talk about it, but I never talk about it on my podcast. I see special operations guys. I see mothers. I see all kinds of people doing this the cold therapy, the cold plunges every morning, or they do them however. I even have one here. I don't do it as often as I wish I did. I actually want to get a system that's a little bit more kind of, self-sustaining, so I don't have to kind of do it myself. That's eventually what I'm gonna get to is some kind of bath that's like self-sustaining. Like I said, like it does it on its own. But what is it about this that has kind of caught the eye of people on social media and is actually been huge? Like a lot of people, it's changing people's lives, and I'd love to understand it more. I'd love for my audience to understand that more.
The biggest thing people miss on social media is the Wim Hof method is not just cold exposure. There's a breath work technique that goes along with it. And then the most undervalued piece of the method is the mindset portion. So the method is comprised of those three pillars: mindset, breath, and cold. And I think because the cold looks sexy on Instagram and TikTok, like, me sitting in a chair, like doing some mindfulness exercises or like reshaping the way I think doesn't get views on TikTok. But hopping in an ice tub, I think it parallels, the same ideology as like military training and endurance events. It's hard to do it. It sucks. And I think it's, that's part of like the draw to it is people like, you hop in, you're doing something that's difficult, something that you're maybe, I talk to so many people that I'm afraid of the cold, or like, it's really, it just bothers them a lot. And they like overcome this fear. And I think that's a big part of the draw is like, I can do anything. And then when you're done, you feel amazing because you get the adrenaline spike, you get the dopamine spike. So your feel-good hormones are elevated. So not only have you accomplished something you were probably, nervous to do. I mean, even as an instructor, I still get it. I'm like, got to do a cold today. Like it never gets easy. It never gets fun. But every day I get to accomplish something that's uncomfortable. And when you start doing that in a repetitive daily task, what that does is it retrains your brain to do things that are uncomfortable, and it can breed success in other areas of your life. And I think other than the clicks and the likes you get from the sexiness of the cold bath, I think the biggest way that it's powerful is doing that. It's that repetitive motion of doing something that sucks.
Yeah, there was a podcast with a doctor who talked about that and how healthy that is, and that actually helps people kind of create other healthy habits in their lifestyles, right? Like it creates almost a whole different person in the sense of like you're rewiring your brain to do the challenging thing, which kind of comes down to becomes almost a disciplined action of like, okay, I want to do this now. If I can do this, I can do this kind of thing. And I've seen from our retreat, right, from just the retreat alone, we did the cold. I don't even know what's the proper term of saying what we did during the retreat. Just Wim Hof method.
The Wim Hof method, yeah. Yeah,
so after the Wim Hof method training that we did, or not even training, just I guess the introduction to it, a lot of guys went home and picked up, their version of a cold bathtub or whatever it was. But there's people from that, there was 30 participants. There's people from that, I'd probably say 6 or 7, who do it now daily, if not like, every other day. It's a regimen of their lives, and it's actually changed their lives. I've seen guys completely become I guess drawn to that method to a point where like other parts of life are now like, I guess I've seen a really big growth in them. And now it's like, man, this is crazy to see, like this shit actually fucking changes motherfuckers. And I find that like, the average person, even myself, looking at him like, yeah, whatever. Another Navy SEAL's doing it, I'm good. Or another Special Forces guy, I'm good. Like I'm in the Special Operations Committee, right? I see all of these dudes, I'm like, okay, somebody paid for that tub for them and they're promoting it. Okay, cool. Then you realize like, no, this actually has changed a lot of people's lives. And it's, like I said, it's something that I want to get better at, but I've seen it firsthand change people's lives. And I've never understand like, why is just cold water that powerful? I don't understand it. Is it, what do you think it is? Is it just the fact that you're forcing to do something you hate?
That's really it. So the cold isn't anything special. So all it is an external stimulus. And what we're doing is learning how to relax our mind during stress. And that's really the basis for the entire cold exposure portion of it. But yeah, like the mindset to get in to do something that sucks every day is going to change the way you think. And, I did a training yesterday for a group of police cadets. And I asked them this question. I said, what do you think is the most powerful wellness practice? Is it nutrition? Is it sleep? Is it, so on and so forth? And everybody gave their answer. And this is my answer to everybody. The most powerful wellness practice is the way you think. It's the thoughts that we have. And I think that's what the cold does. It changes the way that you think about stress. It changes the way you think about life. It changes the way you think about how you deal with things. And it teaches you the way that you think and how to deal with stress, like in the moment when it kicks you. And I'll tell you,
I was like, it was the first time I got into an ice bath in that environment, because like I've done ice bath where it's like nice and slow, but it takes me like 20 minutes to get in it. You know what I mean? Almost like you get into a beach in the West Coast, like it takes time. But when we did it at the retreat, it was like, all right, you ready? Yeah, go. And I was like, boom, it sucked the air out of me. It felt like something like my military training where I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm going to die. Because when the cold hits your lungs or, starts hitting your upper body, it just feels like you can't catch your breath. And I almost wanted to jump out, but I said like, no, people are watching. I gotta keep my head down to this water as long as I can or as deep as I can. And that was, I think part of the psychological advantage was like the pressure of everyone watching and like trying not to bitch out of it, right? Like stay in there, dude. Everyone's watching. You know what I mean? Big tough guy. But after I was like, man, it was a cool experience in the sense of like, I think the community of it, of all of us struggling together, it reminded me almost like of a basic training kind of esque moment where like if you kind of like embrace the suck together, it's a little bit more powerful in the community building, and I think that's what it did for us.
I absolutely agree with that. I've done a couple private sessions, for somebody who maybe doesn't want to get into the, dressed down into the bathing suit in front of a group of people. Like there's all kind of different reasons why people would want to do a private session. But I always encourage people, if you can do it in a group setting, because of that, it is much more powerful to watch everybody, go through, and then the aftermath of like people laughing and talking about it. And like, you could see everybody has just overcome this fear of getting into the ice water, like together. And like, it just,
that's what I thought too. I was like, damn, this is crazy. So when I created the Light the Fuse retreat, I intentionally brought several different modalities and thought leaders because I felt it was important to show many different perspectives and many different forms of therapy that they can introduce to them for their own lives, for wellness, right? What I left out, what I didn't give enough credit to, was the camaraderie of the event. It was something that I learned myself, was like, wow. Because I'm the type of person that's very alone often. Like, my best friend's my wife, and I don't really have friends outside of that besides people I meet on the internet. And I don't have a physical connection to people as much as I used to, because the way my life is like my kids, my wife, and that's it, right? And so like I, for so long, have been in that kind of mode of my life that I discounted the community. I almost felt like everyone talked about the tribe, like, oh, your tribe. And I always started like, I think I'm built different. I don't really give a fuck about the tribe anymore. My tribe times are done. Now my tribe is my family. No. And so like I've discounted myself in my own self. Like, we don't really need community. We really need to learn how to heal. We really need to learn how to have therapy modalities. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I saw it for so long. And then we did the retreat. And like, I think by the second day I was like, I was wrong. Like, it was more powerful. And I felt more connected to that group of men because we went through several different modalities together that were challenging, that were like tough. And I left there realizing how much I've missed the camaraderie and like struggling together. That like now I'm trying to, like, I signed up for jiu-jitsu because I'm like, I want to get back into like sucking together, like fucking doing something challenging. And that's something that I didn't expect.
It's something that I'm glad that you had that realization. And I think, when I bring that stuff to first responders and veterans, they have built-in camaraderie. Like you will always be a veteran. You'll always be a cop, a firefighter, EMS, whatever it is. But we don't utilize it to our advantage enough. We need to learn how to use that community to build each other up. And, you've done an amazing job of like elevating everybody in your space to just do better. And like, when you go into a firehouse, you go into a police department, that some squads are really good about it, but other squads are not. And I worked, when I was a detective, we had several offices within the same building, like different units. And you would walk into one office and you would thought somebody's dog died that day, like every day. It just sucked the life out of you. And I'm like, we can elevate each other by the way we talk to each other, the way we, help each other out, the way we do, the way we communicate with each other. And we just don't do it enough. And I think it's one of the most undervalued aspects of wellness is social community. If you take a look at historic longevities in people that have like in cultures that have longevity, one of the biggest commonalities is community. They have groups that they go out and have a drink together. They go play music together and they laugh and they sit in circles and they laugh and they just have a good time as a group. And I think it's definitely underrated healing modality.
Dude. It's crazy. Like, toxic environments can destroy that. And when you were talking about that, like, I was a drill sergeant for many years, and I was in 3 different drill sergeant units. And the crazy thing about a drill sergeant unit in the reserves is that you get these reservists who don't have their drill sergeant qualifications yet, and we as drill sergeants train them. But for some reason, the culture in Arizona was like crushing these fucking dudes as if they weren't military, and as if they weren't going to be drill sergeants like us standing next to us months from now. And so like I sat there watching, and I was like, man, this isn't Ranger Battalion. We're instructors at this point. We're all, NCOs, right? We're non-commissioned officers. Like, why are we shitting on another non-commissioned officer who's working to be one of us? And so the culture in Arizona was like almost, I was offended by it because I was like, that's terrible leadership, guys, because they're about to be working. We're about to get activated together, and that's going to be our drill sergeant buddy, right? That's going to be our backup, and we're destroying them, right? Culturally, we're just destroying them. I was like, what the fuck? And it's crazy how the cultures in these environments, they breed off of these senior individuals who kind of foster the culture, and too many people still do the whole, this is how it's always been done. This is how we do it here because it was done to me. And it's kind of, I think it's why I eventually kind of walked away from the community of groups of like the veteran community, because personally, as I was on the path of growing, some of my friends weren't. They were still wanting to do this, and I'm in a couple of veteran text groups that there's guys that are still really holding on to the veteran world when they're not veterans anymore. They've been out for 10, 12 years. But, they're like, hey, hoorah, good morning. And you're like, oh, shit, this guy's still fucking in it. You know what I mean? And so, like, I know it's like I fucking wake up. Motherfucker wakes up to Reveille in the morning, dude. But for me, I didn't find that to be healthy in my growth, because I was trying to put that part of my life behind me in a sense of not forgetting about it, but like that's one part of me. But what am I doing now is how I felt was the healthiest approach. And so, like I said, is culturally, guys kind of like hold on to this veteran thing or this law enforcement thing. And I think what has been the healthiest process to be like, I might be a law enforcement officer, but I'm human. And when I'm human, it means I still need connection. I still need community. And I probably need community outside of my fucking community, right? Like, I probably need to make friends that are not cops. And that are not veterans, right? I need people that are outside saying, hey, that's not fucking cool to say that, right? Because like our world is so dark at times. You know what I mean? I need someone to put me in check. Like, that's not a good joke. Like, okay, my bad. My kids do that to me now. My kids do that. They say, Dad, you can't say that. I was like, oh, my bad.
It's happened to me a ton of times. As I've become an entrepreneur, like I go to networking events and I still have that dark sense of humor. As law enforcement officers, we can talk about dead bodies and like all the worst stuff imaginable. And I go to we're having like a champagne brunch with a bunch of business owners, and I'm tell a story, and they're like, dude, that's messed up. And I was like, is it though? Like, you don't even realize it. You're so desensitized.
I have a lot of internal dialogue these days, because I know I can't say those things anymore, and I'm okay with it. It's like part of my growth, right? Is like, yeah, that's funny. I'm not going to say it. And my wife knows it too, because there's something will happen. I'll look, I'm like, okay. She's like, don't say it. I was like, I'm not. She's going to let that one marinate inside my head, because anything else would be inappropriate. It'd be rude, right? Like just bad. But
no, I got the group chat that I could, if I have that thought of like group chat, man, all right, I'm going to send it off to these guys because they'll think it's funny.
Yeah, I have one of those too. I have a healthy group chat of dark humor that stays there. I'm like, oh, government, don't ever look at that chat because we're very rude. But it's something, like I said, I did discount how important a community is, because the community that I was surrounded by wasn't in the phase of trying to grow as much as I was. And so I walked away from the community, and all I had was my wife at the time. And COVID made it even easier to kind of separate from communities, because we couldn't really have commune with people. And so I got very comfortable with just being home. And that retreat really opened my eyes to like, shit, I need something that's a little bit of mine so that I can kind of relate and bullshit and do that thing. And so, I think I learned a lot from that retreat, and I didn't even expect it. I fucking created the motherfucker, and I learned for myself accidentally, from you guys. I learned from you guys, like, oh shit.
And that's a beautiful thing. And that's really where leadership shines. Like, leaders need to be learning from everybody around them. I had a really good SWAT commander when I got on the team. And one of the practices that we had was like, during a brief, we'd always go around the room and he would create the plan and then ask everybody their opinion on the plan. He would always let the new guy go first. Because if the veteran guy went first as a day one operator, do you think I'm going to go against the grain of a 15-year operator? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I got to put my opinion out there, and then I got to get told why I was wrong 100 times before I learned. But that's how I learned, and that's how I learned to voice my opinion as well. Because I felt comfortable coming out, not having to be like, oh, man, Tom's been in the team, 15 years, and obviously he's probably right, so I'm just going to go along with it. He said, so by getting to go first as the new guy, like I got to go throughout my wacky idea, and they were like, hey, appreciate that, but X, Y, and Z, you can do this, this, and this. This is why we can't do that. And it was a great way for me to learn, but also a great way for leaders to help elevate new guys and make them leaders as well and show them how it's done.
Absolutely. In the Ranger community, they say good initiative, bad judgment. And then they correct you. But it reminds me of my son now. My son, he's 15. He asks a million questions that he doesn't need to. I don't know why he asks them. And I'm always like, okay. Or sometimes I'm like, bro, what's wrong with you? What are you so? He's like troubled with the world's issues. And I'm like, you don't have to be. You're 15. like calm down. And it reminds me of like a young soldier who's just like, hey, Sergeant, why don't we do it this way? Like, because you got to do it this way because whatever. But like in Ranger Town, there's one of the standard operating procedures for entering and clearing the room is usually the team leader goes third. And the reason why is because the team leader is kind of first and second is probably the most dangerous entering and clearing a room because they're the first two to clear the threats. And third would usually be kind of safer, but also you're in the middle of your stack where you can kind of control the stack, right? You can kind of guide throughout the rest of the house. But personally, I never felt comfortable with that because I didn't want one of my new nugs, right, my new kids who'd probably been in Ranger Town for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, to be the first one in a room when I'm the most experienced and my senior dude is more experienced than that. So I liked to go first, and I liked my saw gunner to go right behind me, or vice versa, him to go first because my saw gunner was someone I trusted and I felt was very senior to the team. And I'd put my young dudes behind me, and people were like, I don't like that. I was like, yeah, but when I'm running my team, I do that because I felt if I'm the most experienced, I should be able to manage the room the best, and I'd probably be able to engage on the threat sooner because I've done this in a sense, right? And so, like, that was one of those moments where I was given the opportunity to kind of create my own standard operating procedure for our team. But I think a lot of guys kind of started, not because of me, I think we all thought, like, it just sounds odd in a sense. And so let's kind of tweak things slightly so it felt better for, like, as the whole, right? Leading the mission, the men, the me. You know, it's like not me, but more so the mission was more important. And so that would mean I'd rather sacrifice me over the mission.
Yeah,
you understand
absolutely.
what I mean?
And, it's just, I think I can understand different thought processes on that too. It makes sense in one thought process that you would send the new guys in because that's how they get the experience, right?
Yeah, actually,
and then your thought process also very much makes sense because you have the experience and it may be safer because you understand it. So like it's kind of the chicken or the egg. Like how do you navigate those things? And these are the challenges that leaders have in these tactical positions where it's literally a life and death situation. We have to make these decisions of how do we elevate the team? How do we make everybody better? How do we, do the right thing and then put the mission above all else?
The breathing side of Wim Hof is not talked about often. What are some things that, the listeners can learn about the breathing side of Wim Hof?
The breathing side, it's different than any other breath technique that I've done before. So usually, a lot of veterans, first responders understand what like tactical breathing is, like box breathing. That's probably been brought up quite a few times. It's the 4-4-4, like in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold at the bottom for 4, right? What that's going to do, and I've actually used this in a real life scenario. I was pursuing a homicide suspect, and we were doing like 110 miles an hour on the highway, and he was firing his weapon out the window at me. And I felt my physiology start to ramp up. That's some scary stuff, right? Not only are we, driving really fast, but I also had rounds coming down range. And I was able to use the tactical breathing, not to get me in a relaxed state, but more of a focused state. And that's really what it's for. It's like in the moment. You can use it if you're nervous about public speaking. It's to get you from here to here and not from here to here. Well, at a base level, we want to be down here. And that'd be like a relaxation technique. Where the Wim Hof differs from both of those things is it teaches you to amp up your nervous system. We want to upregulate, and then it teaches you how to downregulate your nervous system. So what that's doing for practitioners is it's teaching you how to stress your body out from a physiological perspective, and then literally just use your mind to control how you handle stress. And a little bit ago, we talked about just the repetition with the cold. The breath work is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I always look at the breath. You always do the breath first, not during. I want to make that distinction. Never do the Wim Hof breath technique in the cold exposure. You always want to do it like in a safe place because you can get lightheaded. We don't want people like drowning or, if you don't do it while you're driving. There's been all kind of crazy instances. Why I give these disclaimers. But the importance of it is, again, stress is a big issue. So we want to we want to stress ourselves out purposely. We want to get that hormetic stress, and then we want to learn how to control it. So that way, when we get stressed out in real life, our natural response through repetition is to, okay, I can control my stress response using my mind and using my breath. And that's really the way that it's done.
That's good. Yeah, I had no idea until you showed us that. I thought we were just going to jump in the cold water. I'm like, we got to breathe first, damn it. Like, I don't want to sit here and breathe. And then we started doing the breathing, and I was like, man, I'm not very good at breathing. I'm not very good at holding my breath or letting out the breath as fast as I was like, it was work. Like, it was work. It felt like my first time trying yoga. Like, I felt like stressed out, and it was good though. I mean, I learned a lot about breath work, but that was a surprise to me.
One of the cool things that people don't realize with the breath work is, like, we're hyper oxygenating ourselves. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is that the deep inhales that we take during the breath work are not what's oxygenating your cells. It's during the breath hold, and then you do that breath hold, and then afterwards you do that quick inhale. We need carbon dioxide. We need that CO2 to elevate in order to offload that oxygen into our cells. So we want to make sure we're doing the breath technique that every portion of it has a distinct function of how to actually, reduce the stress, oxygenate your cells, reduce inflammation. So there's a very rhythmic, structured way to do this technique that's very well laid out by science and why it's done that way.
What are some of the stories you've heard from people that started doing the Wim Hof method that's like dramatically changed their lives, even if you have experience with that as well?
I know 5 people personally and saved from suicide. They said just the reducing stress, whether I had one person who was degenerative disc disease, was bedridden for 2 years. Because the Wim Hof method helps with pain management, he was able to get out of bed and move a little bit. So he implements Tai Chi and the Wim Hof method to make his life more manageable. Whereas before, he was contemplating, kind of ending everything, and actually gave him a bout of life. I know someone who has not had a symptom of MS in 7 years from being a practitioner.
Really?
I also know 2 people that have reduced their Parkinson's medication by 80 or 90%.
Whoa. Is there a reason why there's these dramatic changes in these people's lives?
Yeah, and a lot of this is, so for those listening, some of this is not substantiated by clinical trials yet. So this is just based off anecdotal studies. So don't take this like word yet. Well, you get a dopamine spike from the cold and the breath work. And part of Parkinson's is you have issues producing dopamine. So that would probably be a good explanation of why that's helped the Parkinson's patients. MS, the reduction in inflammation that the method helps with, it helped with your MS. And then, we talked earlier about like the way we think is a really important wellness modality. And I think when it comes to the suicidal ideations, you're overcoming something difficult. You're giving your body, your mind purpose, and you're realizing that you can handle more than you think, and you're learning how to reduce stress, and you're doing all these things to better your wellness, and it gives people a chance at life again.
Man, I love it, dude. Tell me what's going on now. What are you working on?
Right now, I'm working on an awesome project that I'm really excited about. It's called Tour de Patriot. So what Tour de Patriot is I've partnered with Mom and Dad Army, which is organizations that I am part of. And I'm doing a 1,200-mile bike ride through the 13 original colonies. I'm starting at Exeter, New Hampshire, and then we're going to end in Savannah, Georgia, where I'm going to throw a gala for all our sponsors. I don't want to say it. I feel like in our country right now, our divide is getting bigger by the day. It's just insane, right? Like left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. And as somebody who's been basically politically homeless their entire life, I felt like I had to do something, and I didn't know what. But I was at the hospital with my daughter, and I was down. I had nothing to do. She had swallowed some magnetic balls, and we were just waiting for her to like pass those, right? I'm just sitting in the hospital room and I'm playing on my phone and I'm doing, just mindlessly scrolling and Googling. And I was like, oh, I wonder what the longest bar crawl ever was. So I Googled the longest bar crawl. It's 3,000 miles. So some guys did it in 120 days. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I wonder what it'd be like to go from down the East Coast, like Maine to Miami and like do this like crazy bar crawl. And I was like, you know what? I can do something a lot more productive than just go drink beer for 2 months, right? So I started to I went for a walk and the idea just kept changing and changing and changing. And eventually I settled on Tour de Patriot. I was like, it'd be really cool to go through the 13 original colonies, document American history, and then speak to people about what it means to be an American. And I've been trying to be very clear about this project. This is not a left or right thing. This is not a Democrat, Republican, or a Trump Biden thing. As Americans, we all want to see our country succeed. And I feel like the biggest issue is we talk at each other, we talk over each other, but we don't talk to each other. And the other thing is I feel like we all want the same thing. We just have a different idea of how to get there.
I love that, man. I love that. When do you start that?
That starts September 3rd. I've been working with Folsom Tavern, which is now a museum. It's a very historic tavern in Exeter, New Hampshire that was very integral in the Revolutionary War. A lot of American patriots would meet there and talk about military strategies and things like that. And so I've been working with them to do like a launch party. And then I'm going to head off to Boston. I have 3 days there. And then if you go on the tourdepatriot.com, you can actually see which dates I'm going to be in which location. And then we're going to end on September 28th in Savannah, Georgia.
Love that, man. How can the listeners and viewers support you?
Also, so there's a bunch of different ways you can support us. One, I want to know that some of the proceeds for this event are going to go to support Tomorrow Battalion, which is your nonprofit supporting first responders and veterans. Again, a project that's near and dear to my heart. But you can either be if you own a business, you can be a corporate sponsor. So we have sponsorship packages for that. You can just flat out donate, $5, $10, $100, whatever you feel comfortable with. You can buy one of my programs, which is $99. All the proceeds are going to go to support this initiative. I'm also working on a virtual bike race. So I've been working with a website to get that set up so where people can, pay a small entry fee and they can bike along with me. Cause for those listening, I'm doing this ride solo. I almost wanted to do it Paul Revere-esque style, like what one person can do. I think a lot of times in our conversations, we're like, well, it's just one vote. I'm just one person. I'm just, we don't really see the big picture of we feel like, oh, what can I do? Well, one person can ride 1,200 miles and kind of ring that metaphoric bell and, signal those lights that the British are coming. So I'm going to do that ride solo, and I want to talk to as many people along the way as I can.
I love that, man. I'm interested in trying to help you get some sponsors. We'll make sure we put the links. So send us the links and everything for this podcast when it's done. But we'll definitely try and push it out to people and get you some support, man. I think that's cool, man. You're going to be filming it as well?
Yeah. So what we're hoping to do is part of the money that's going to be raised is going to go towards hiring a documentary crew that's going to professionally film the whole thing. If I do it, it's not going to be as good.
Yeah, I have a couple guys, so let me know. I can try and get you meetings with all of them, see who has the best, who can do it for the best budget or whatever. So let me know.
Awesome. Yeah. For any information people want, you can go to tourdepatriot.com. I got the sponsorship opportunities there, the donation links there, all the information about the tours there. And I'm super excited. I actually have an interview with the Tucson news station tomorrow. They're going to cover the story. And I think this is just the beginning. So for anybody listening, if you have contact with news media, podcasts, social media influencers, again, this is about everybody. It's you're supposed to niche down your audience, right? That's what they tell you in business. Well, my niche is the American people right now. And the only way we're going to survive as a country is if we start having conversations that we don't want to have.
I love it, man. Well, Adam, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patriotism to this country. And I appreciate you joining us for our retreat. We're going to miss you on this one, but I know you're out there doing bigger things. We'll make sure we push it out there. We'll talk about maybe helping us find someone else who can facilitate for us, because we definitely need someone who you trust to be able to lead our group.
Awesome,
But
man.
thank you so much, Adam. Seriously, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.